One of the top things you can do today for your personal cybersecurity is setting up a password manager. Passwordless technology is coming soon. Very exciting times ahead, but it's not quite ready for us just yet. So in the meantime, password managers are the way to go. Hi, my name's Wayne. I'm a cybersecurity specialist and I want to help you be more secure online. In this video, we'll be taking a look at why password management is important, what a password manager is, and why you should use it. In the interest of time, in this specific video, I will not be covering which specific one to use, what to look for in a password manager. I will be briefly touching on it, but not in depth, and some other best practice guidelines for passwords. For example, how to create passphrases. I might create separate videos on these. Of course, I value your time, so I'll be breaking these down into easy to digest sections. I'll leave the chapters below, so feel free to jump between them. In the year 2021, multiple research studies show that an average person has about 100 online accounts. That number might have increased now. There was another study conducted by Verizon depicting 80% of hacking-related breaches are linked to passwords. Now, if you're talking hundreds of accounts, I don't blame you. That's too many to remember. And for each account, everyone is expecting you to have the password as long as possible, have some symbols, have a mix of letters and numbers, uppercase and lowercase characters. No wonder everyone just reuses the same password. See the problem? If not yet, let's dive into what the ramifications are of someone getting a hold of your password and subsequently your account. So you might be asking me, suppose someone gets my password, so what? What can they do with it? Since they have your password, they will be logging on as you and impersonating you, so they could do pretty much anything that you can. Now, some websites are good with prompting for additional verification each time, but we as users can't rely on it. It's entirely up to the creators of the website or app on whether they want to implement it and how. So let's just assume it's absent. They could also get to know more about you, getting access to your data, which they can use for a bigger attack. So they might not have known any other details about you, but now that they can log into your account, they could see additional details like your full name, address, date of birth, phone number, existence of a linked bank account or credit card, and possibly even more. Even if they can't do anything in a specific app or website, they could gather that information about you, and once they have sufficient knowledge about you, they could impersonate you and try and commit other fraudulent activity. Okay, so let's take a further step back. How would they have obtained my password in the first place? Well, they could just guess it. It still surprises me how many people still use very simple passwords like password 1234 or just the default one that comes to your device. They could try and crack your password. It's multiple different methods. Brute forcing, where they systematically just try every single combination until they find the correct one. Rainbow tables, where there's a pre-generated list of hashes, and associated plain text passwords, where they compare the two and determine if a hash's value is known. As mentioned, I'll try and keep this video high level and won't go into too much detail, but there are various techniques out there. And lastly would be phishing or social engineering. Arguably, this option is the least effort and highest reward. They'll try and call you to get you to reveal your password or ask you to log into some website of theirs, or just try and get some additional information that they can use for account recovery. They could send you emails with links to fake websites. They'll try and trick you to log into these ones, and because these websites are the ones that they've created, they can see whatever information you enter. And if you enter your password into it, you can definitely see it then. So why wait to get compromised? Rather than focus on remediation, let's explore prevention. So what is a password manager? It's a tool that creates and stores passwords for you in an encrypted database. This is generally referred to as a vault. Think of it as a big safe, and you're keeping all the precious information in it. You then lock up that vault with one password. This is your master password. Using that one master password, you then unlock the safe and you can get access to all the other passwords. Now, you only have to remember this one master password. And now, since you only have to remember one password, you can make this as secure as possible and as long as possible. Now, you must be wondering, isn't that risky? Aren't I creating a single place for everyone to attack? Yeah, you are creating your passwords all in a single location, but in my opinion, and as well as other experts out there, the benefits far outweigh the risks. We'll go into depth into each of the reasons, but overall, you'll be better able to secure it and control it. It's much better than the alternative of having bad password hygiene and having to remember heaps of complex passwords. You do need to take some additional measures when using a password manager. So firstly, make sure that your master password is secure. And secondly, just put some additional thought into which password manager you would be using. Now let's dive into some reasons why exactly you should be using a password manager. So it's not only good security-wise, but it will make your life so much easier by storing the passwords for you. As I mentioned earlier, on average, people have about 100 accounts and subsequently corresponding passwords. With this, you only have to remember one master password and it handles the rest for you. You get good visibility knowing exactly which account you're using for which website. A lot of the time, you may be unsure of whether you even have an account with them. This will help you remember that. You also won't have to stress about remembering what your password is and having to go through password resets or even account lockouts. This way you can always be sure of your password and have none of that stress. You get an easy way to create good passwords without you having to do anything. It will create a strong, random, long password for you, and the best part, you don't have to remember it. And now that you don't have to remember it, you can make it as long and complex as possible. It prevents password reuse. So many instances of password 1, password 2, password 3. A lot of the advanced password managers have functionality to alert you if your password has been detected in a data breach or data leak. Data breaches happen very often, and we may not even hear about them. In Australia, about 1 in 3 people would have been affected by either the Medibank breach or Optus breach. If you're lucky, you might hear about it, but in a lot of cases, you won't even know if your data is compromised, or it might be too late. Now, this may not be 100% reliable and may not pick up all of the instances, but it does give you an easy consolidated way, which will alert you instead of you having to go and look for it. You can easily change your compromised passwords. A lot of managers do track a history, so you can know when you've last changed your password, and you can easily keep track of whether you've changed a password which has been compromised. Now, for ease of use, it does provide an easy way to log in. Most password managers come with an associated app or browser extension or phone integration, so you don't have to type out the passwords manually. When you go to the login page, you just click on the form and you can ask your password manager to fill it in for you. No more having to manually type out your email address and password. Now, because of this, it is phishing resistant to some degree. When you do store your password, let's take Facebook as an example, you would be saving it under facebook.com. If you happen to go to a site that is not facebook.com, your password manager will not fill it in for you. It will check the domain name in the URL and not fill it in if there's a mismatch. So if you happen to go to an illegitimate website, it won't fill in the details for you. Now, of course, this doesn't prevent you from manually copying your password into this illegitimate website, but does provide some protection. Lastly, you can use this password manager to store other important or sensitive information that you have. Maybe driver license number, passport number, TFN, and so on. Anyways, again, it's up to you whether you feel comfortable storing all that extra information in the same location or not. You might want to separate it out into somewhere else, into another location. Some password managers also allow you to use them as your two-factor authentication method. Again, depends on whether you're comfortable doing that. You may want to keep it on another authentication app like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, or you may want to have it all in the same place. Before you go, I have some important tips for you when setting this up. Firstly, and most importantly, make sure that your master password is secure and you're storing it securely. Make sure it's strong. Make sure you aren't sharing it with anyone else. Make sure you aren't using the same password anywhere else, and make sure it's fairly long. Additionally, you may want to change it periodically as well. One method you might want to look into is using passphrases. I won't be covering it in this video, but the basic idea is that you use a whole phrase as a password instead of just one word, and you create as long and as random as possible. Secondly, if you can, set up multi-factor authentication on your password manager, mainly if it's a cloud-based service. This will ensure that only you can access your passwords within. Thirdly, you still need MFA on each of your accounts. Don't be fooled into thinking that just because your password is secure, that you'll be fully protected. Turn on MFA on all of your different accounts. Wherever possible, try and use time-based OTPs or hardware security keys, something like YubiKey from Yubico. SMS is not a good factor. However, in the absence of anything else, at least on that one, something is better than nothing. Also, make sure to set up your account recovery options. Depending on whether it's a cloud service or a self-hosted password manager, you may have to either manually back it up yourself, or you might get some recovery options like creating a recovery key. Make sure you set those up and store those ones securely as well. Last thing you want is to lock yourself out of your password manager. If you are self-hosting, make sure you back up and make sure you secure that backup as well. In regards to autofilling your passwords, I would recommend don't turn on automatic filling and submission. Depending on the password manager, you may have an option to automatically fill in the login page and send it automatically without you having to do anything. I would highly recommend against this. I would recommend you going the manually fill in route, where you just click on one of the fields and you get prompted to fill in the password. It's still fairly automatic. You don't have to enter the details. You just tell the manager to fill it in for you. But the difference here is that you are doing it manually rather than automatic. The reason for this is that there have been instances where attackers have exploited the auto submission option so that you don't get a chance to check the website that you're on. They may be using some hidden fields which automatically captures the data before you get a chance to verify the website for yourself. An additional tip is that you can use the password manager to store your security questions as well. When you're setting up security questions for websites, most information on people is already online and very accessible. For example, the school you went to would be on LinkedIn or Facebook. It's not really a good secret and you shouldn't be using it as a security question. So instead, create a fictional school name or even some random characters and enter that as your security question and save the answer to that in your password manager. Again, the password manager does the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to remember it. Criteria for password managers. Now, as I mentioned, I won't be going into too much detail. Make sure that they encrypt on your device. This will ensure that whoever is managing your vault, whether it be LastPass, 1Password or any other vendor, they never directly get access to your data. And if their server gets compromised, your password should not be accessible either. Choose one that has multi-factor authentication for an extra layer of security. And if you can, either time-based OTP, check how well vetted the service is. Are there any third-party audits that have been conducted? And are these published? This will give you some sort of assurance that this company has been checked by other third parties. You may want to look into self-hosted versus third-party managed or cloud. There are pros and cons to each. It depends on your level of comfort. Similarly, offline versus online. Again, it depends on your comfort level, whether you're happy for it to be completely offline, automatically sync for you, or somewhere in the middle where you manually sync it periodically. That's pretty much it for this video. I try to keep it short and concise, but as you can imagine, there's a lot to cover in cybersecurity, and I'll be trying to create more videos, making it simple and easy for you to understand. In the meantime, if you have any questions or any specific topics that you'd like to see, feel free to comment. Thanks for watching.